September 22nd, 2023, Houston, Texas. A 22-year-old mother leaves work with a mysterious man in a white van. The van sits parked for an hour with the lights off. Then it drives away. She's never seen alive again. 2 days later, she was supposed to testify in a capital murder trial. She never makes it to court. Her body is found months later in a Dallas culvert. And the man responsible? A 51-year-old with a history of violence against women who was released after questioning, only to be arrested again when DNA evidence proved he'd murdered her. This is the story of DeAndrea Ford, a young mother trying to survive, a witness who knew too much, and a system that failed to protect her. Disclaimer. Before we continue, this case involves graphic descriptions of violence and murder. Viewer discretion is advised. And DeAndrea Ford wasn't just another missing person. She was a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a woman working multiple jobs to provide for her 4-year-old son. But she was also something that made her vulnerable. She was a witness to a murder that powerful people wanted to keep buried. And when she disappeared just 48 hours before she was scheduled to testify, the question wasn't just, where is she? It was who wanted her silenced. If you're here for true crime that exposes the cracks in the system, that demands justice for victims who don't always get headlines, hit that subscribe button. We bring you new cases every single day. Real stories, real victims, real failures that need to be talked about. Let's talk about who DeAndrea Ford was before she became a case number. DeAndrea Ford was born on October 24, 2001, in Houston, Texas. Not much is publicly known about her parents, but her grandmother, Bridget Carrier, and her uncle, Kevin Carrier, were the family members who stepped up when she needed them most. DeAndrea's life was eventful, to say the least. She was social, outgoing, and full of life. But at just 16 years old, she found out she was pregnant. For a teenager with big dreams, it was devastating news. But DeAndrea didn't let it break her. She moved in with her grandmother and decided to turn what some people called a mistake into her greatest motivation. When her son was born, everything changed. DeAndrea became fiercely determined to provide for him. She worked multiple jobs, doing whatever it took to make ends meet. Her family wasn't surprised. That was just who DeAndrea was, and someone you could count on, someone who worked hard and loved harder. But DeAndrea's line of work wasn't conventional. She made most of her income through sex work, meeting men, and providing companionship and pleasure for money. It was how she got pregnant in the first place. And it was how she paid her bills. With a young child to support, DeAndrea needed more consistent income. So she applied for a job at Diver's Bikini Sports Bar and Grill in East Houston. Given her experience, it was no surprise she got hired immediately. The bar was known for its dancers and entertainers, and DeAndrea fit right in. Despite the nature of her work, DeAndrea was professional, hardworking, and well-liked. The owners, staff, and customers all grew fond of her. She had a warmth about her that made people feel comfortable. But not everyone was a fan. And that would prove to be deadly. September 21st, 2023. Just before 1 a.m., DeAndrea had been working at Diver's Bikini Sports Bar for only 2 weeks. She was wrapping up her shift, getting ready to head home to her grandmother's house like she always did. Then a man walked in. He looked ordinary, casual clothes, kept to himself, but there was something off about him, something that didn't sit right. He struck up a quiet conversation with DeAndrea. From their body language, it seemed like they were negotiating, discussing the possibility of spending the night together for money. DeAndrea smiled. She seemed flattered, maybe even convinced. This was part of her hustle. Nothing unusual. The man gestured toward the door. DeAndrea hesitated for just a moment before nodding yes. Normally, DeAndrea left work with friends. They always went home together for safety. But tonight was different. She sent a quick text to her friend saying she'd found another way home. Then she walked out with the stranger. Surveillance footage captured everything. DeAndrea got into a white GMC Savannah van with New Jersey license plates. The man got in the driver's seat. And then something strange happened. The van didn't leave. It sat there in the parking lot with the headlights off for nearly an hour. Was DeAndrea having second thoughts? Was the man trying to convince her of something? Was something more sinister happening inside that van? Nobody knows. But after an hour of sitting in that dark parking lot, the headlights finally turned on. The van pulled away. And DeAndrea Ford was never seen alive again. DeAndrea had plans to visit her grandmother's house that night. When she didn't show up, her family started to worry. They called her phone. No answer. They sent texts. No response. No social media activity. No credit card usage. Nothing. By Monday, September 25th, 3 days after she was last seen, her family couldn't wait any longer. They reported her missing to the Houston Police Department. A woman has now been missing, and her family is asking for your help to hopefully find her. She was last seen getting into a van in front of a bar where she worked with an unidentified customer. DeAndrea's uncle, Kevin Carrier, took the lead in the search. He spoke out publicly, demanding answers and expressing frustration over what he saw as a lack of urgency from authorities and the media. I do believe nowadays, it's sad to say, but your complexion brings about the attention that you get, whether it's good or bad circumstances. Nowadays, I hate to say it, black and brown men and women, we don't get our fair share of what we need. We don't get the same resources that the others get. The community rallied around the family. Search parties were organized. Flyers with DeAndrea's picture were posted all over East Houston. Volunteers combed through neighborhoods, parks, and abandoned buildings. But as days turned into weeks, there were still no answers, no leads, no body, no sign of DeAndrea. And then, investigators uncovered something that changed the entire case. As the investigation into DeAndrea's disappearance deepened, a shocking detail came to light. DeAndrea wasn't just a missing person. She was a key witness in an upcoming capital murder trial, and a trial scheduled to begin just 2 days after she disappeared. Tonight marks 2 weeks since missing Houston woman DeAndrea Ford was last seen leaving work. Court documents show Ford was present when a man was shot and killed in May while she rode in a car with that victim. Let me take you back to May 18th, 2023. Around 4:25 a.m., Houston police responded to a shooting at an apartment complex on Selinsky Road in southeast Houston. When they arrived, they found 35-year-old Otis Parker Jr. unresponsive in the driver's seat of a crashed vehicle. He'd been shot at least once. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. In the passenger seat was a woman, unharmed but shaken. That woman was DeAndrea Ford. So what happened? Otis Parker Jr. wasn't just anyone. He was DeAndrea's manager. He arranged clients for her and other women in the sex work industry. He found them high-paying clients, took a cut, and kept the operation running. That night, DeAndrea and another woman had just returned from a trip to Louisiana where they'd met with clients. DeAndrea was carrying $1,500 in cash from the transaction. But someone knew about that money, and they wanted it. Court records show the murder was part of a planned robbery.
Woman has now been missing, and her family is asking for your help to hopefully find her. She was last seen getting into a van in front of a bar where she worked with an unidentified customer. Fox 26's Sherman DeSell is joining us live here from East Houston. And Sherman, you spoke to her family. What did they have to say?
Yeah, good evening, Anthony. DeAndrea Ford, she was working at the Divas Sports Bar and Grill, Bikini Sports Bar and Grill, as a dancer for only a few weeks. The family says that the last time they heard from her was right before this happened, this September 21st, around 1 a.m. And she was seen on a video camera outside of the business, getting into a van with someone who was in there just a few minutes before. So here's what we know so far. Around 1 a.m. that night, the surveillance video shows what the family members saw. They said that around 1 a.m., the girl got in the passenger seat of a white van outside the bar with the customer. They sit there for a little over an hour. The van then drives off, and her uncle says before she got in the van with the customer, that same customer was seen talking to another female staff member inside the bar for a little while, about 20 minutes. They seem to be familiar with each other. No suspects have been identified by police.
4 suspects were later arrested and charged with capital murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. 21-year-old Jarrell Tavon Wheeler, Jamal Ray Brown, Quiana Renee Taylor, and 23-year-old Mariah Corinthian Green. All 4 were awaiting trial, and DeAndrea was the star witness. She was the only person who could testify about what happened that night. She was in the car when Parker was shot. She saw everything, and someone didn't want her to make it to that courtroom. Angry text messages from one of the suspects made it clear that DeAndrea was in danger. One message explicitly stated that she wasn't safe in Houston. But here's the thing, all 4 suspects were already in custody. So who silenced her? On November 1st, 2023, police from another state contacted Houston investigators with a major breakthrough. They had found a white van that matched the description of the one DeAndrea had entered on the night she disappeared. Detectives rushed to examine the vehicle. What they found was chilling. DNA evidence, multiple cell phones, and fingerprints. Those fingerprints were entered into a database, and investigators got a hit. The van belonged to 51-year-old Yolande Washington, a man with a dark and violent past. Washington had a history of crimes against women, and now he was linked to DeAndrea's disappearance. Detectives brought him in for questioning. For hours, they pressed him for answers. Where was DeAndrea? What happened that night? Washington had a story ready. He spoke calmly, giving answers that seemed to satisfy investigators on the surface. And then they made a shocking decision. They let him go. The family was outraged. The community was in disbelief. How could the last person seen with DeAndrea be allowed to walk free? Police remained silent on their reasoning. They simply said the investigation was ongoing. But behind the scenes, they were building a case. They requested DNA samples from DeAndrea's family to compare with what was found in the van. Days later, the results came back. DeAndrea had been inside that van. Even more disturbing, her DNA was found mixed with Washington's in bloodstains on a shirt he wore the night she disappeared. With this new evidence, police acted quickly. On a cold November morning, they arrived at Washington's home. This time, there would be no release. Yolande Washington was arrested and charged with DeAndrea Ford's murder. Just for full disclosure, we were told by HPD that the person of interest was detained out of town. This man, Yolande Washington, he was arrested in Dallas for a different case, but later charged after investigators said they had evidence connecting him to her. Inside the courtroom, tensions ran high, and the prosecution laid out their case: surveillance footage, bloodstains, DNA evidence, Washington's movements in the days following DeAndrea's disappearance. The defense argued that without a body, there was still room for doubt, but the family knew the truth, and they demanded justice. I haven't said anything to him, but eventually, if it keeps on and we don't get no word, I'm going to have to end up telling him. That was Kevin Carrier, talking about DeAndrea's 4-year-old son, a little boy too young to understand why his mother wasn't coming home. Months passed. The search for DeAndrea's body continued. Volunteers combed through wooded areas and abandoned lots, hoping to bring her home. And then, on March 15th, 2024, DeAndrea Ford's remains were found in a Dallas culvert. It took until September 17th, 4 months later, for DNA testing to confirm her identity. It's an outcome family members of DeAndrea Ford didn't want to see. Her remains identified in Dallas nearly a year after she disappeared from this bar in East Houston. Finally, after months of uncertainty, the family could give DeAndrea the burial she deserved. But the pain didn't end. The case is still ongoing, and the question remains: why wasn't she protected? DeAndrea Ford was 22 years old, a mother, a granddaughter, a woman trying to survive in a world that didn't always protect people like her. She was a witness to a violent crime. She was scheduled to testify in a capital murder trial, and she disappeared 2 days before she was supposed to take the stand. The suspects in the original murder were already in custody. So who wanted her silenced? Was it someone connected to the case? Was it Yolande Washington acting alone? Or was there a bigger conspiracy at play? We may never know the full truth. But what we do know is this: DeAndrea deserved protection. She deserved to be taken seriously. She deserved resources and safety. Instead, she was left vulnerable, and she paid for it with her life. Her uncle, Kevin Carrier, said it best. At the end of the day, we want DeAndrea back. We want answers. We want any of the two. The family got one of those things. They got DeAndrea back, or at least her remains. But the answers? Those are still incomplete. DeAndrea Ford's story is a reminder that not all victims get the same attention, that women in certain professions are often ignored, dismissed, or blamed for the violence committed against them. But DeAndrea was more than her job. And she was a mother who loved her son, a granddaughter who stayed close to her family, a woman who worked hard and did what she had to do to survive. And she deserved better. Our deepest condolences go out to Bridget Carrier, Kevin Carrier, DeAndrea's son, and everyone who loved her. May DeAndrea's memory be a blessing. May her story push us to demand better protection for vulnerable witnesses. And may she finally rest in peace. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, share it. Let people know that DeAndrea Ford's life mattered. Hit that subscribe button for daily true crime content that refuses to let victims be forgotten. Stay safe out there. See you in the next one.